All right, let's make an intro. This is our intro. Like, so we have something different.
Or what are we doing? You gotta direct it, man. You gotta tell me what to do.
Hey, if you are watching us right now, then you are in store, all right? Three brothers right here in Los Angeles, right off of Crenshaw. We're talking about Black history, a subject that is near and dear to my heart, to our hearts. I'm Larry Wiggs,
Arius Williams.
Terrell Harris.
and we are here to give you some history that I'm sure your history teacher did not tell you, all right? So to start off the discussion today, gentlemen, I want to talk about a great man, a great black man from this great city right here, Los Angeles, California. All right. His name was Paul Revere Williams. He was an architect. He was born right here in Los Angeles. And no matter where you go in Los Angeles, you can see his work. And I'm sure we've been to buildings, we've walked through those buildings that he has designed, and we didn't even know that a black man created, designed, and had a part in making that real.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to talk to you guys about.
I mean, I hadn't heard anything about Paul Revere Williams growing up. I may have heard him in passing a couple years ago. I had no idea any of his work was still standing, and to know how much stuff is still here is pretty crazy.
And how much of an impact has he had? Like thousands. They say like 3,000 buildings, not only in Los Angeles, but even Colombia, Puerto Rico, Nevada.
Like Arrowhead.
So he is the definition of prolific.
Yeah.
All right. One of the places to start off is right down the street is the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza. Now, he designed they say he designed the anchor stores, and those anchor stores, that's the J.C. Penney's or the Macy's at the ends of the mall. Now, Arius and I, we're from Los Angeles. We're natives. Mike?
Yeah, I'm from Cleveland, so
Cleveland.
this is my first introduction to Paul Revere Williams and his architecture.
So I hope to give you a thorough introduction to this man because I did some research. All right. So Mike, we gonna get into this right here. All right. So Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza. Arius and I are familiar with. We're gonna have to swing by there, Mike, to show the location. But let me give you an outline of Paul Revere Williams' life. Born in 1894, all right, he was an orphan by the age, well, his mom died when he was 2 years old. His dad died at the age of 4. So by 4 years old, he was an orphan. Now, something interesting about his mom and dad is that Olvera Street, which is the oldest street in downtown Los Angeles, his folks had a fruit stand on Olvera Street way back in the day. So that gives you some idea of black folks being enterprising in the 1800s. All right. So
They had to be enterprising. I mean, that's survival, Yeah.
Mike, have we been to Olvera Street? Did I?
Maybe, I don't know.
So Arius, usually when Mike and I link up, I am a host. I'm trying to be the ambassador of the city, trying to show them all that good that is here in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So there's plenty of other stuff, but yeah. Now he was the only African American, only black kid in his class when he was in elementary school. He had a foster parent who took care of him, and he was the only black kid in his class.
Do you have any information like where was his foster parent black? Was it a black person or? Okay.
So the foster parent was a member of First AME Church,
Okay.
an elder. So we can assume, there was Charles Clarkson took care of him.
Okay. First AME Church is one of the oldest churches here in Southern California, Los Angeles. Goes back a long way. I think he ended up redesigning that one as well, right?
Right. As the congregation grew, they changed locations, but yeah, the building that stands today, Reverend Cecil Murray, who passed recently within the last, I want to say 5 years, but we'll get to the First AME Church. Just wanted to put that out there. All right. Now he was basically he directed his education. And he decided from a very young age that he was interested in drawing and design. And so he was encouraged to follow that path, even though as a black boy growing up in Los Angeles, opportunities were far and far between, right? There were no opportunities for him. He said, no, I'm going to stick with it.
I did read that he was actually, a teacher of his actually discouraged him from pursuing that path because he felt like, first of all, Negroes couldn't afford architects, and outside the black community, nobody would hire them.
Yeah.
So it's a testament to his belief that he kept going.
And so he kept going. He graduated from high school in the year 1912. He continued to pursue his dreams. He ended up attending the University of Southern California, USC. All right. Still, I'm sure it was a lonely path for him to study, you know, and also with the racial climate of the time where, you know, he probably didn't have a lot of support, you know. That's what I'm guessing. I read that in order for him to get one of his first jobs after graduating from university, he made a list of all the architectural firms in Los Angeles. And he called those firms and presented himself and asked them for apprenticeships. And he was denied until that one agreed to have him work under him. I believe it was Wilbur D. Cook Jr. Who gave him his first opportunity. So he worked there. Then he moved to, he worked for another architect, Reginald Davis Johnson. He became a certified contractor in the year 1915, yada, yada, yada. Now, let's see. He designed homes. He designed homes throughout Los Angeles. He became known as the architect to the stars. So that's where that's how he got his bread and butter, because he was so good at what he did that people started calling him to say, "Hey man, you've got the skills and all." And all right, so let's get into some of these locations that are around the city. All right, the Second Baptist Church. This was the first African. How about we mix it up and someone want to read? Because I'm leading the conversation mostly.
I mean, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about what was LA like back then. I mean, I know you said he's born like 1894. He's born here in Los Angeles, right? I think his family's from Memphis. So I'm like, what was Los Angeles like in 1900 or 1910 when he was a child? You know, like I actually have no idea. I have no idea what it would have been like, but it's just something to, you know, really ponder. You know, like I know like in the 20s and 30s there was a thriving black community here in Los Angeles around Central Avenue. But he's here like predating the rise of that, so he's probably a part of the rise of that area. So I'm just like, you know, wondering what it was like and what the world was like.
Well, we had Central Avenue was central to the black community because we couldn't live anywhere else. We were relegated to Central Avenue, and the jazz, maybe that's a different era, maybe that's the 50s, but he was certainly coming up around that time. Biddy Mason owned property on Central Avenue. Biddy Mason was the first black millionaire. She was a philanthropist, and she was the founder of First AME Church, the church that Paul Revere Williams was a parishioner, you know, to. which makes me I want to go to. I mean, I know we're recording on a Sunday, but I'm thinking I want to go to these churches and sit in them for one service just to be in a historic environment. I think like week after week, just hit a new church. Like,
You feel like it's gonna be a historic environment
yeah,
because of it being a church or the building.
like the people, the church, the building. Like, I mean, just to traveling when you go to a location, you sit there and you're like, hey, this is what happened here. This is what was going on. I would like to sit in a pew at First AME. I've never been there.
The first AME that he designed is not the first where it's at now, though.
The one over there is the only one that I know. It's around the corner from the Great Western. No, not Great Western. The Great. What is the name of that building? The insurance company.
I don't think that's where it is today.
Great State Mutual Life Insurance.
I think it's in Inglewood. Pretty sure.
You think it's in Inglewood?
Pretty certain, yeah.
All right.
But yeah, I feel you though. You wanna travel these places and get like a sense of like what it's like to be.
Okay. So there's the First AME Church where I would like to sit in the pew because I've never been there. Then there's the Second Baptist Church. Now the story goes, Second Baptist Church, Paul Revere Williams was hired to design the church, and the pastor at the time, Thomas Lee Griffith Sr., well, he insisted that all the skilled workmen, including excavators, cement masons, carpenters, and brick masons, he insisted that they all be from black-owned businesses. Like, that's historic.
It's funny, Dr. Umar, in our contemporary time, he wanted that for his Philadelphia school, and he found out that just because of the way the trade unions are and the pushing out of black men from the skilled trades, it's no longer possible. And I believe if you wanted to do that in LA today, it wouldn't be possible either.
Wow.
And that's part of, based on the gentrification and the outflow of the black population. I read some places it's as low as 6%.
Yeah, 6%. And just in the 1980s, it was around 23%, I think I read, right here in Los Angeles. Yeah, our numbers have been dwindling for sure.
No, I'm so wrong. You're right. It is 100% wrong. It is that church. I'm thinking of Faithful Central. That's what I was thinking of.
Now, what's the history with Faithful Central?
I don't know the history of Faithful Central, but that's the one I'm thinking about in Inglewood. Yeah, the First AME Church. It is the same one that he redesigned back in the 60s. So, yeah, you're right. Yeah, 100% right.
All right. But, okay.
Well, we were talking about, you said
Second Baptist Church, another church, because we'll come back. We'll come back to First AME. But Second Baptist Church, the pastor said all black tradesmen work on the building, so the construction is still there, and that is a testament to black work, black hands, black.
Well, I mean, the pastor went out of his way to get a black architect, so. From the beginning, his thought was recirculating the dollars possibly, or just having this being a testament to what black men can accomplish. I mean, we don't know what exactly his motivations were, but it was an obvious choice.
Sounds about right.
Sounds really, like an obvious choice.
There's only one black architect west of the Mississippi, and that's who you chose. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, like back then, I mean, black people, black men were the tradesmen. Like we were the construction workers, So it was much easier to have it all black. Not to say we know it was all black, but probably was very easy to have an all black construction crew. Today, that would be very difficult, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, on the West Coast, the history of the trade unions, the only reason why we have unions in America is as an organized way to force black men out of the trades. Coming out of slavery, the black men had all the skills. So for the white people to control these things, they turned it into unions, and they excluded the Southern black men with the skills from these trades. And that went on all the way up until the 60s and 70s.
Whoa. So there you have it. Let's look at.
And in here is done by illegal Mexican labor.
The
forcing
influx.
out, lower class, lower income black people. So it's always been economic warfare against black people via the trade unions and the skilled labor unions. Even the mass migration of the Chinese is part of that desire not to economically empower black men.
Yeah. So
everything is interconnected. So
yes.
The reason why, as African Americans, as black people, immigration has always been harmful for us, and these are the reasons why. On the East Coast, it came from European whites. On the West Coast, you have the Asians and the Mexicans. So it was the same dynamic.
All right. By the 1920s, he joins the American Institute of Architects, first known African American member. All right. He designs the 28th Street. Now I'm mentioning these locations because these are right here in Los Angeles. Like I said, I might want to just have a pilgrimage, go to these churches in these locations, which I've already done, some of them, but I haven't sat in those pews, right? The next is Mr. Bill Bojangles Robinson's home, which is not far from USC today.
Bojangles.
Now, I grew up, didn't you hear Mr. Bojangles? And it was like, there was something beautiful about that. Like, hey, that's Mr. Bojangles, a dancer. And then the song, I remember Sammy Davis Jr., he jumped so high, Mr. Bojangles. I had an affection for this man who I never really saw in movies or never saw, anything about him, but it was just a black man I knew danced, and that was great.
Bojangles?
Mr.
Tap
Bojangles.
dancer?
Yeah, Mr. Bill Robinson. Now, the story goes, he had his home, or he gave the design, he asked Paul Revere Williams to design his home for him. And his home is right there off of 36th Place, down the street from USC. So today, some USC students are living in there.
It's still standing today?
Still standing. Yeah, man. Interesting story, interesting life about Mr. Bojangles. Like his wife said that he loved to dance, he loved dice, and he loved vanilla ice cream. I read that. So,
Do you understand the cultural significance of vanilla ice cream?
I don't know.
In the South, vanilla ice cream was only allowed to be eaten by black people on the 4th of July. It was
damn.
Black Americans shouldn't enjoy anything good and white except for one day of the year. Oh. That's why black Americans tend to like butter pecan ice cream. Historically, we weren't allowed to eat vanilla ice cream. So, in a way, him centering vanilla ice cream would be a subversive act. Interesting. And it's funny because the vanilla bean comes from Africa, Madagascar.
All right, now the story.
And it's black.
The story behind the discovery or the the cultivation of the vanilla bean, that's black. A 12-year-old black boy working with a white slave master scientist who he himself could not figure out a way to cultivate the bean. His 12-year-old black slave boy messed around and did something that he hadn't done, the white slave master. And he was able to germinate the vanilla bean and mass produce it. And so when the slave master returned, he said, "What did you do? Oh my gosh, you've done something that I couldn't do myself." And it was him. It was the ingenuity of the little black boy, 12-year-old black boy, that allowed for the mass production, for us to enjoy vanilla ice cream or vanilla anything today. This is due to a little 12-year-old black boy. Now, his name, I don't remember his name. I have to search his name up. But these are all facts. These are all true stories, y'all. So, but Mr. Bojangles' home, yes. Now, so that was around the 1930s when Paul Revere Williams designed that home for Mr. Bojangles. In addition to the 1930s, he designed Angelus Funeral Home and also Saks Fifth Avenue. Now, Angelus Funeral Home is, I mean, if you grew up in Los Angeles and you rode down Crenshaw, inevitably you were going to pass Angelus Funeral Home, whether you wanted to or not, right? My aunt had her wake held there. I believe that, I think Sugar Ray Robinson, when he passed, great boxer Sugar Ray Robinson, when he passed, I think his wake was held there as well.
Who's your aunt?
Who was my aunt?
Who's your aunt? Let's give your aunt a shout out, man.
Well, in 1988, she came to the world stage for becoming the fastest woman, fastest
Some of
woman
you guys
in the world.
know her as FloJo.
Florence Griffith Joyner. And we knew her called Auntie Dee Dee. Her middle name was Dolores, so Auntie Dee Dee. She set records in the 100, 200, and 400 meter relay. And her record for the 100 meter still stands as a historic record.
Well, I believe.
All right. So,
And
right.
Also, icon of fashion.
She definitely set the standard, or she showed her creativity through her fashion designs. Yeah. So, but Angelus Funeral Home and Nipsey was had his wake there. So hopefully for the listeners, these are some names that hopefully can spark some ideas and memories across generations.
So this man has his imprint just all throughout LA history and culture because of the designs that he created that were around well after his own death.
Yes. Yeah. So the story behind the Angelus Funeral Home is, you're going to see it if you're driving down Crenshaw. It's across the street from Earl's. All right. It's across the street from, what else is over there? Right now, the District and other black-owned businesses. But that location isn't the original location of Angelus Funeral Home. Going back to Central Avenue, the original Angelus Funeral Home is located on Jefferson, like around the corner from Central Avenue. Again, because Central Avenue was just that important to the black community, that's where it was. So that location still stands to this day. They've converted it. It's no longer a funeral home. They've converted it into offices, and then they've added on some apartment complexes, apartments. So it's called the Paul Revere Williams Apartments. So these are affordable housing units for the community. But it was originally designed by Paul Revere Williams, and when they moved locations to the current location on Crenshaw, Paul Revere Williams designed that building as well. So remember, thousands of buildings, homes and commercial buildings were designed by Paul Revere Williams. All right. Now, to get a sense of what was going on during the time of his life, he could not live where he constructed these buildings, especially if they were in Beverly Hills. And he actually designed homes and commercial buildings in Beverly Hills. One that is really famous is the Saks Fifth Avenue shopping or boutique or what have you. Saks Fifth Avenue. So the Saks Fifth Avenue, the story goes, from what I read, it was a woman's designer shopping mall. And the ladies would show up and they would have their tea, have their gatherings. You know what's interesting is malls back in the day hired models to put the clothes on and wear and model and to show the clothes for the ladies. So they would sit there with their tea and then watch as a model. They would say, I like that dress. Have her put this on and come on out. And they would sit with their girls and say, oh, I like how it flows and this, that, and the third. So for what Paul Revere Williams created, he created an oasis, an escape for the women of the day to say, hey, we're going to hang out at the Saks Fifth Avenue. Of course, it was high end. It was posh. It was all of that kind of stuff. And so he designed it. Today, there are 4 different buildings that have the name Saks Fifth Avenue. There are 4 different buildings, 2 of which were absolutely designed by Paul Revere Williams. The other 2, they're newer constructions, but they're still part of Saks Fifth Avenue. It's Saks Fifth Avenue, so I've never been in there. It's Beverly Hills too.
All right.
So Saks Fifth Avenue, that's another spot that Paul Revere has designed, and it's still standing. His designs are now, like, they're registered. They are not. Many of them can't be torn down. Some of the homes,
they're historical sites.
yeah.
Okay.
Some of them they have been torn down, and they are sadly going to be torn down. And I don't know if the fires affected some of the Paul Revere Williams constructions. You know
I was
what?
thinking about that too, because especially in terms of Altadena, because they said he designed over 2,000 homes in the Los Angeles area. I was just wondering maybe if some of his work was there, because a lot of those homes were either marked historical or were about to be deemed as historical architecture. And so, yeah, it's pretty devastating.
I would be remiss if I did not say we should take a moment of silence for those families who lost loved ones in the Altadena families. We're recording this podcast on a Sunday in the middle of a tumultuous time in the history of Los Angeles, where fires have ravaged communities. So let's take a moment of silence for the families who have lost loved ones, as well as lost their homes and precious memories due to the recent fires in Los Angeles. All right. Now, Altadena has been affected by those fires, and Altadena was you want to tell us?
From what I've heard, Altadena was one of the first black middle class communities in Los Angeles area. And so, just like everybody else, I'm watching the news. I didn't know that, but I'm watching the news and I'm seeing all these black folks. I'm like, damn, there's a lot of black people over here.
Yeah.
Altadena. Yeah. I mean, I always knew like Pasadena had some black people, but I just never thought about Altadena. You always hear about it. I mean, I've been there, but it's not really on my radar. But just seeing all those black people in the interviews, and then that's when I started to learn, like, this is an old black community that was obviously being gentrified. It was in the process of gentrification. So a lot of these homes were now multi-million-dollar homes, and in terms of their value, we all know the housing market in Los Angeles was already tight, and so homes that have been here for a long time have skyrocketed in value. So this was like generational wealth for a lot of African American people in our city, and so to have that happen is crazy.
Absolutely, generational wealth. Okay, now we're getting into it, because the family who lost their one of their patriarchs, the grandfather, was of the last name Nickerson, of the Nickerson family. And the Nickerson history ties in with Paul Revere Williams' history as well, because Nickerson was the owner and founder not only of the great state. Let me get the name right.
Golden State Mutual Life Insurance Company.
Golden State Mutual Life Insurance Company, the only life insurance company for blacks west of the Mississippi. Nickerson was the founder of that, and I believe it was the great grandfather who was the founder. The grandfather of a young Kimiko Nickerson passed away in the fire. They lived in Altadena, and that generational wealth was working in their family because they purchased their home for $5 in 1968. This is recorded in the Los Angeles Times. 1968, purchased a home, $5, and they had it until just 2 or 3 days ago. Now, their wealth, the family's wealth, came from the ownership and founding of the life insurance company that benefited all blacks, it started from 1925, exactly 100 years ago. The insurance company ended in 2009. And
2009?
2009.
Really?
Don't you just want to go back and be like, stop, wait, what y'all doing?
I thought it ended like in
Keep this going.
1975 or something like that.
Right.
So, but it wasn't operating out of that building that it is today. Do you know? Or
from what I read, it was. It had been recently, as of 2009, it had been sold to another company.
okay.
So we might be talking about decades of decline.
Yeah.
We talked about 23% of the population down to 6%. Where's the new money coming from? But not only did Nickerson, I don't want to mess up his first name, but Mr. Nickerson, not only did he start the life insurance company, the life insurance company that was also designed, the location that is at Western and Adams today, that was designed by Paul Revere Williams. But Paul Revere Williams also designed Nickerson Gardens, housing projects where Kendrick Lamar grew up. Did he grow up there?
He didn't grow up in Nickerson Gardens, but he frequented to Nickerson Gardens. But my father grew up in Nickerson Gardens.
Okay.
In Watts. But he shot the Not Like Us, part of the Not Like Us video in Nickerson Gardens. It's known as like a traditional haven for Bloods and stuff like that in the city.
Right.
So yeah, like a neighborhood. I'm not sure what it's like today, but traditionally.
And so that was Nickerson's project to provide public housing for the folks. Paul Revere Williams was on board because Paul Revere Williams' philosophy was everybody should enjoy good design. Paul Revere Williams was known as the architect to the celebrities, to the stars, but he was willing to design for the public in general. So that is commendable. That is a part of his legacy that we definitely need to share, promote, and talk about, which is what we're doing, right here.
I wonder what the percentage of African-American architects there are today. I know there's a girl we went to high school with. I think her name, I want to misquote, but she was a part of designing. She was like the head designer for SoFi Stadium.
Oh, wow.
I think she's a year behind us. I think I'm going to go ahead and say her name, Jerisha. Do you remember Jerisha? She was a year behind us. But anyway.
But shout out to you.
Yeah, I wonder what the percentage of African-American architects are today. I mean, Paul Revere Williams was dealing in a time where he was like one of few. And I feel like it's probably better than one, but I feel like we're probably closer to the one than 1,000, but I don't know. So it just shows you the impact that you can have outside of sports and entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
Make a huge impact in things like the sciences,
I was at the local, Rosalie's in Inglewood, and they had the television on, and ABC News was reporting about the American Institute of Architects, coincidentally, right? Just walked in there, and here they were talking about it. And specifically, they were talking about, let me pull her up. I took a photo of the TV as they were playing, but I didn't catch her name. But I think she's the director or the president. President and CEO want to make field accessible for more women. So it's timely. What we're talking about is timely, you know. So,
But going back to just what we were talking about a little earlier in terms of Black Los Angeles and things like that. I just Googled, I was like, what was the African American population of Los Angeles in 1940? And according to, it says it was around 63,000 people. I don't know if this is accurate, but if this is accurate, that means that there was never like a lot of black people here in Los Angeles. Like there was never like, you go to like New York or like places on the East Coast, there's like these huge like black communities, but I say that to say that just because it's not a lot of us doesn't mean that the impact that we make can't be significant. Yeah. So, yeah.
And our history goes back in the great state of California. History goes back so far, like the state flag. The state flag was in part designed by black men. There were about 39 men who were involved in the Bear Flag Revolt, 7 of which were black men. We don't hear their stories, but we will get to their stories in future episodes. What else? Then there's the Santa Monica Mountains, where those were once inhabited by Bayard, John Bayard and his family, until he was run off of his land. His home was burned down several times. He owned 320 acres over in the Santa Monica Mountains. Him and his, I think, 7 kids or so. But anyway, the point is, we may have been, the numbers might have been small, but we were mighty. So let's move on to the Rochester home, because here's a man whose interesting history, Eddie Rochester. All right. Well, he was the I don't know, Martin Lawrence, Dave Chappelle, Richard Pryor. He maybe not as cutting edge, maybe not as raucous as their comedy was, but he was the man. He was the comedian of his era, and he was a black man who was put on by a white Jewish guy. Now, of course, during that time, his buddy Jack Benny lived in Beverly Hills. Beautiful home. Story goes, his home was beautiful, and Rochester, which was his stage name, that was his character, saw the home and said, I want a home just like that. But he, a black man, couldn't live in Beverly Hills, so he asked Paul Revere Williams to design his home, and they designed it and put it where we could live, which is basically off of Adams, near Jefferson and Adams, and in what was called Sugar Hill. And so that home still stands to this day. The street has been named after him, after his character, and it's a beautiful home. And
for those who don't know, Sugar Hill community is actually where the 10 freeway is located.
Oh.
They built the 10 freeway through that community. There's actually a pretty good television series. It's called Lessons in Chemistry.
Never heard of it, but okay.
Yeah, it's on Apple. And one of the black characters in it is a lawyer. And they live in the Sugar Hill community, and they're fighting to save the Sugar Hill community. That's that's one of the like B storylines in the series. They're fighting to save the Sugar Hill community from the 10 freeway being built, and so obviously they lost. And 10 freeway is built where Sugar Hill is built through Sugar Hill. I mean, sure, it's still there, but it in effect destroyed that as a prominent black community.
Yeah. And the families, and that was recent because the 10 freeway was constructed in the 60s.
50s, 60s, yeah.
Like, or it was, they ended construction in the 60s. Like, man, that's yeah. But the thing about this Eddie Eddie Rochester Anderson was the man. He was the star, but he was the highest paid black comedic actor of his time. So I don't know how much the average black family brought in. Was it $1,000 a year, $10,000 a year? I don't know. But Eddie Rochester was bringing in $100,000. How much do you think they were making back then?
In the 50s, the average black family,
Yeah,
$1,200 or less.
a year.
Sounds right.
So Eddie Rochester Anderson was making $100,000.
So he was balling out of control.
Out of control.
He was rich.
He designed a car. So with his downtime, they said he would put together model airplanes or cars and stuff like that.
Rochester?
Rochester did that in his spare time. But he also designed and had a Rochester Roadster, real drivable car created. And of course it's a rarity because, who has it? Who has one, But it's out there. You can find, if you can find it. So Rochester, that's an interesting. Now, again, these places, these homes, these locations are still standing, and you can drive around the city, which makes me think of a business proposition, a business for us to get into. Tours, Los Angeles tours, the Paul Revere tour. You can follow us. If you're watching this podcast, come to Los Angeles, contact us, and we'll take you on a tour of Los Angeles.
Black LA tour.
Black LA tour. Or if you don't contact us and you watch and listen to this podcast, then go ahead and follow the locations that we mentioned, and by all means, have at it. Rent a car and go.
That'd be dope.
So you're going to give me a tour of the Nickerson Gardens?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Seems like fun.
Hell yeah. My dad used to take me. He used to always take me out there. Nothing gonna happen, man. You'd be fine.
Yeah.
Take a tour of white folks and Asians from Japan
Yeah. I got to connect.
to the Nickerson Gardens. Nah, it's probably. I don't even think it's that many black people that even live there now. But
What I find interesting about the story of Paul Revere is you have this black genius, and to placate lesser white people, they would come to his office and he would have to put them on the other side of the table, and he had to develop the ability to draw upside down. Yeah. And it's easy for us to say in 2024, I would just say, get the hell out of my office. Just the mindset that black people had to have to constantly be placating these lesser whites. And it's sort of like, even to this day, we're kind of torn. Do we play the game and try to get over and become a Paul Revere Williams, or do we fight against the system and we buck at every turn? And it's funny, literally every black man has to make the decision: how are you going to carry your life? How are you going to go through this life? Are you going to fight with these whites, or are you going to just accede to their system? And obviously, he made his decisions on how he was going to live his life. And I mean, it's obviously no criticism from me. He did great things, and he actually gave back a lot of the wealth and opportunities that he was able to get. He gave back to black people. So there's no criticism, but it's just the idea that, for however his main professional career was, 50, 60 years, these racist whites were coming in asking him for his genius, and they still won't deem it necessary to sit next to him to see what he's doing for them. And that on some level, that has to be humiliating.
Oh, absolutely. But all right, now Paul Revere Williams was clear about who he was. All right, and he even wrote in an article, I forgot where it was published first, but it was later published, I believe, in Essence magazine in the 80s. Ebony magazine, entitled "I Am a Negro," in which he details, what he had to do. That's where I believe I learned the story about him calling all of those architects. That aspect, that was his tenacity, his persistence, perseverance. Like, it was difficult for him, for a black man. He knew he could not live where he designed homes. Yeah, that was, humiliating. That was an awful reality. I'm doing this for these other groups, these other people. Yeah. But his legacy, quiet subversive nature. He's like, okay, I'm doing it this way, and I have to do it this way now, but things are going to change. He was optimistic and hopeful for a change. In that article, I Am a Negro, he writes, he said, if I could speak to the Negroes, because that's what we were referred to. That's what we refer to ourselves as. He said, if I could speak to the Negroes, he said, I would say this. Freedom, was only an opportunity. Now, the real work is for us, to do. In so many words or less. I'm paraphrasing here, but this is basically what he was saying. So he was like, brothers and sisters, we've got to get to it, And in his case, he decided on what he was going to do, and he followed through. And, and we are recipients of his legacy. But then there are a lot of other great men as well. And in part, going back to the Golden State Mutual Life Insurance Company, that was a combination, a confluence. That was a community of blacks who came together to create the life insurance company and Los Angeles. The legacy of the life insurance company. Let's see. I was going to read this. Let me try to read some of this that I copied. It says, what became the Golden State Mutual Life Insurance Company was founded in 1925 by William Nickerson Jr., Norman Oliver Houston, and George Allen Beavers Jr. It was one of the first companies to offer life insurance to African Americans in Los Angeles who were routinely denied coverage by white companies. The company quickly grew as they expanded to fill a huge void for African Americans. A 1978 company history described the home office as a symbol of black enterprise and of loyal service to many thousands. Conceived by Williams as part of the building's design are two murals that flank the upper portion of the double height lobby. Those murals, man. If anybody was wondering about Paul Revere Williams's ideology, mentality, all they have to do is look at those murals that are at the Golden State Mutual Life Insurance Company that are still standing. They're so powerful. For him to have agreed to put those images up there, that was revolutionary. The story.
What does it look like? What's in the images?
Tells our history. I don't have the images right in front of me here, but we can find those images. You've got the murals just basically tell the story of black folk in California. I think from the 1920s. Yeah, here we go.
Oh, wow.
And in that there are the stories, the lived experiences of our people. There are actually 3 panels of the mural. And if you look at the detail, you can see it. You can see our history there. Now, the thing about these murals is they speak to a political reality that went largely unspoken, or that people couldn't discuss, or that people couldn't challenge. I'm thinking of when Diego Rivera, the Mexican painter Diego Rivera, when he painted a mural for Rockefeller. He was commissioned to paint this mural for Rockefeller, and he included, laborers, day laborers, or migrant workers, and he basically imbued the mural with his political views. You know what happened?
What?
His political views did not rock with Rockefeller. Wasn't with it. He was like, take that down.
They were communists, right?
Diego Rivera,
Marxists,
yeah. He was like, take that down, destroy that, change that, you will not be paid, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas this mural is still standing at the great Golden State Mutual Life Insurance Company for all to see. It's just as evocative. You look at that and you're like, oh, okay. The brother knows. They're speaking to our reality, our lives, you know. They're keeping it real, basically. All right. We got through a lot of the Golden State Mutual Life Insurance. So finally, later in life, let's see, in 1963, that's when he designed the first AME church, which is, you know, we know of it where its present day location is. 10 years later, in 1973, he retires.
What about the LAX building?
That's absolutely a part of it. Now, the thing about a lot of these locations is Paul Revere Williams was a draftsman at times. He was the lead or the head architect. He was on teams. His hand was in some of these projects, but some of these projects, like the theme building at LAX, he wasn't the chief architect.
Got it.
So, you know, and then even with the Rochester home, I read that later research showed that he wasn't the architect of that home. So I included it anyway, because the story of Brother Rochester being the man, you know, at that time needs to be shared. You know, but if you go into the Rochester home and see the design, you can see what appears to be a Paul Revere Williams staircase, because Paul Revere Williams used curved lines often. That was indicative of his style. The Beverly Hills Hotel is another that was redesigned by Paul Revere Williams. So everywhere you go, you're going to come across a Paul Revere Williams design, whether you know it or not. And then, okay, so back to the retirement.
Yeah. His handwriting is where it says Beverly Hills Hotel. Yeah, that's supposed to be on.
Not only his handwriting, the hotel itself was redesigned. So it had its initial rollout. One architect designed it, but then Paul Revere Williams came in years later. I think the story goes the business was going down, and he had to revitalize. So they brought him in to revitalize it, and he redesigned the hotel. Again, he couldn't stay there. Brother couldn't stay there.
In the 70s, he
couldn't stay in Beverly Hills Hotel.
He couldn't stay in the hotel. Well,
what year did he redesign it?
Right, it couldn't have been the 70s because that's when he.
Well, that'd be after the Civil Rights Act, so that would make it illegal.
So it's probably the 40s or the 50s when he redesigned it, and he couldn't stay there as a black man.
Yes, probable. Yeah. I always wondered, since he. You know, there are two groups of black migrants to L.A., and the first group of black migrants didn't like the second group of migrants that came in the 60s. So I wonder if he was part of like the old guard.
He had to be.
Who didn't really like the new Negroes on the block, the new Southerners.
Well,
I wonder what his intra-racial attitudes were.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Since he would be like a millionaire black man.
Well, he had the complexion. Well, Paul Mooney would have said the complexion for protection. He wasn't. He didn't have
white.
that. No, he didn't. He didn't have that. But he was easy on the eyes.
I mean, the pictures I've seen is definitely a good-looking guy. He's definitely a little lighter skinned. So all those things probably helped. But at the end of the day, he was a genius. Like the drawing upside down thing to me is like proof of his genius. And I think we've had this conversation before. I'm really curious about like what he was like as a person, especially as a young man. What he was like as a person, especially as a young man, like what his character was like, you know. Was he eccentric? Was he, I just wonder what he was like. Because to say, oh, I want to be an architect, there's no black architects that you know of at all. And it's just like, oh yeah, I like drawing. I want to design buildings. Like what type of person was that?
Yeah. All right. So to wrap this up, to wrap it up.
Wrap it up, B.
Big Mike's always referencing Dave Chappelle's comedy, the wrap it up box. Wrap it up, wrap it. So Paul Revere Williams, 7 years after retiring in 1973, he passed away in 1980. And Paul Revere Williams, his remains, along with his wife's remains, are at the Inglewood Park Cemetery today, which is another interesting reality because there are a lot of our legends who are laid to rest there at the Inglewood Park Cemetery. Etta James, our former mayor, Tom Bradley. Those are the two people who come to mind. Ella Fitzgerald, Inglewood Park Cemetery. So there's history in Los Angeles. There's history here. And any last words?
I mean, I just think it's really important that we continue to do things like this to shine a light on the history of Black people in Los Angeles specifically, because, a lot of these people who lived in Los Angeles were some of the biggest names of their time. And it's like at some point their impact kind of like just fades into oblivion, which is a part of life. But I think it will help serve as, an inspiration for the next generation who might be striving to do incredible things. And I think the fact that Paul Revere Williams was someone outside of the entertainment and sports field is, but still a creative, still a creative is it's an inspiration for those who are coming up now in terms of what they can do with their own lives. So,
he led a fascinating life, and it is, to me, it's very interesting, like how you have just pockets of Black genius just pop up instead of us as a group having a systematic way of producing genius over and over again. Like we sort of do it in sports, sort of do it in music, but like everything else is just like one singular talent. It happens and then it's over. It's like a candle in the wind. Nothing came before, nothing came after. He was a great man. There was no second, third, fourth generation of Paul Revere Williams, even in his own family.
Black history, y'all. We're talking about it. Come back. Meet us on the next episode. Peace and blessings.